Good afternoon. I hope you can hear me. My name is Rick Davis. I'm a sales manager at HAYNE, and I'm going to be hosting the webinar today. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join us for this demonstration of LucaNet. The heavy lifting will be done by Gavin Allen, who's the Managing Director of LucaNet UK, who I'm sure is going to introduce himself in a few minutes. Firstly, maybe a little bit of housekeeping. We've placed all delegates into mute so you can hear us clearly, but we really want you to ask questions as we go along. So if you can see the question box or the chat box in your GoToWebinar panel, then I hope that you'll type in any questions that you have as we go along, because I'll make best use of Gavin's time. It's the advantage of a webinar over watching a recording. That said, we are recording this webinar and we will make it available to you, so you don't need to scribble down lots of notes. We've got an hour and we want to spend as little time on slides as possible. That said, I'll just, for those of you who aren't familiar with us, I'll give you a short introduction to HAYNE, if that's okay. So HAYNE is solely dedicated to solutions for the Office of Finance. The collective finance experience of the co-owners of HAYNE, Neil and Mark, is probably more like 60 years, 30 years apiece rather than 25. Mark's on the call, so I hope he doesn't mind me saying that. They are both fully qualified accountants, though they are in different corners. Neil is an ACMA and Mark is an ACA, but I'm sure they don't bring it up too often. They both started out with careers in finance departments in industry. Neil worked for IMI, so particularly manufacturing industry, and Mark was into container shipping with companies like Freightliner and P&O Nedlloyd. So they've had a lot of experience of doing the kind of roles that you guys are doing today. And they implemented systems to improve the processes in their respective companies. I think they enjoyed that more than the finance, to be honest, because they decided to set up shop helping other finance leaders implement similar systems. And over the years, they built up a team of about 20 consultants who range from more qualified accountants like themselves, qualified and part qualified, but it also includes highly qualified technical staff, because we support all the solutions that we implement, and we also support a lot of solutions that we didn't implement. So people have moved over to HAYNE to support solutions that have been implemented by other people. Being in the Office of Finance, naturally HAYNE specialises in consolidation, disclosure, planning, reporting, analytics, all those things that you're familiar with. They're taken together have got this term of Finance Performance Management, or FPM. Principally, we've been delivering those systems with IBM, and large reason for that is it's the big three, IBM, Oracle and SAP. They've really had the R&D budget to draw together all of those capabilities into a single IBM solution. But there's been a lot of new entrants to the market over the last few years, and we've assessed a lot of those companies and came to the conclusion at the end of last year that we think LucaNet is the best among them, and we became a LucaNet Premier Partner as of the end of last year. I'll talk a little bit about why we chose to partner up with LucaNet. It's fairly simple. Their unique difference is the simplicity of the way that they achieve the consolidation, planning, reporting, and all of those capabilities. And that simplicity comes through as it's being very easy to use, which reduces the total cost of ownership, because ultimately you can implement this system pretty much yourselves, which is what you're going to see in the demonstration. I was fortunate enough to go to the LucaNet UK conference at the end of last year, and one of their UK customers, Generator Hospitals, actually presented on why you wouldn't implement LucaNet, given that it's affordable. And a lot of reasons that he reckoned that people haven't done it is because they think that their existing system is good enough. He's seen plenty of systems, as have we, and generally they just are not good enough when you compare them to something like LucaNet. There's a lot of perception out there that you would need to change your ERP to implement a consolidation system like LucaNet and many others. And that's absolutely not the case, and again, you'll see that in the demonstration. There's also a perception that it will take too much effort. That's effort from perhaps an expensive consultancy, and a lot of internal effort to implement these kinds of systems. Again, I hope you see from the demonstration this is not the case. It takes very few days from a consultancy and a minimal amount of time internally. And finally, there's a perception generally that these systems are too expensive to purchase and implement. And again, with an entry-level system like LucaNet, this is absolutely not the case, and we're delighted to take you through those numbers. Okay, I'll just show you our kind of obligatory customer slide. These are some of HAYNE's customers. The purpose of this is hopefully you identify with somebody in your particular vertical sector, and if you don't, then by all means challenge us and ask us if we've done work in this field before. But in all cases, these are in the finance departments, functions within these businesses, and so the processes and the systems are very similar. I'm sure Gavin will show you a similar slide for LucaNet specifically. So with no more ado, after that quick intro of HAYNE, I'd like to pass control over to Gavin, who will take you through LucaNet and the demonstration. Thank you. I'll pass over to you, Gavin.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Rick?
Yeah.
Good, okay, so I'll assume everyone else can also hear me also. So I think good afternoon everybody, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar. I'm Gavin Allen, MD of UK and Ireland LucaNet. I'm going to briefly give you all a whistle-stop tour of just some of the capabilities that LucaNet has to offer. And speaking as a pure finance person, ease of use, transparency, simplicity are all things that we value very highly. But above all else, what we value the most is clients taking the product and developing it under our guidance, which is very, very different to a number of our competitors who rely purely on external consultancy to effectively build something in isolation and then feed back to the clients. What you'll see with LucaNet is an application that genuinely from day one our clients can adopt almost immediately. So without further ado, let's have a look at LucaNet. But I think before I do, it's important to note that LucaNet is not just about bringing the numbers together. It is also a way of managing a process. You can probably see on the screen a Gantt chart that is fundamentally representing a closed process. This is completely customizable. So in other words, you can go into LucaNet and you can manage the myriad of interactions to your consolidation, planning and reporting process through a simple single-click environment in a Gantt chart that can actually show when things are due. This can be integrated with your email system so that when you log into LucaNet in the morning, you can see which tasks you have due and which tasks are finished. So in my case, I would need my knuckle slapping because I've got plenty of overdue actions. So again, this process of managing people, in my experience, is a greater challenge than actually the numbers themselves. We can also add content and document content within LucaNet, and you'll see that as we go through the presentation, where we effectively self-document the solution. But I'm just going to start by opening an embedded document that is actually inside the LucaNet system. So you can see this is a PowerPoint slide that I've actually got embedded within the LucaNet environment. So many of our clients also use LucaNet as a document management solution to share documents. And I think we're very proud at LucaNet. We use our own system for just that purpose. I'm sure HAYNE would agree that when they became a partner, all of the materials were in a LucaNet application and all of the documentation is shared accordingly. So I'm not going to burden this webinar too much with PowerPoint slides, although I am going to start with a little bit of positioning. We were founded in the late 90s, and the three gentlemen that you see on the slide are still engaged and actively operational daily within the organisation. We're still privately owned, which means that we really do have control of our own destiny. Unlike many of our competitors, we are not backed heavily by venture capitalists. The three gentlemen you see there, as I say, are actively involved in daily operations. And I think for me, that says a lot about LucaNet and what we stand for. We're very finance focused. As you'll see in the demonstration, our software has been built from the ground up as a financial consolidation, planning and reporting tool. It's been designed by finance for finance. You may not have heard of LucaNet here in the UK. Having said that, the UK operation that I now head up started in early September, and we're delighted to have closed business already. Globally, we have over 200 employees and an ever-growing list of customers. We do have offices throughout Europe. You can see predominantly we have our head office operation in Berlin, but we also have some more regional offices within Germany. But you can also see we extend the reach out into further parts of Europe and beyond. And as I've mentioned today, I'm sitting in the UK office based in Surrey, delivering the webinar today. A little bit about my background. I have been in the industry for a lot of years. Prior to that, I worked my way up the ranks to a financial controller within the Siemens organisation. But I have worked with probably nearly all of the competitive technology, so from IBM through to Getic, Board, Adaptive. And when I first saw LucaNet, I thought for the first time I have seen a solution that has finance in mind. And the demonstration, hopefully, that I give this afternoon will bring that through. As I said, we really started out in the late 90s, and we've grown significantly. We've now probably over 1,600 customers in over 30 countries, all enjoying the benefits of the LucaNet solution. As Nick said, the obligatory slide that indicates our client base. In the UK, we've recently delivered a solution to generator hostels. We've also delivered a solution into Pertec and a few others as well. We also have extended our partnership base quite considerably from both audit and ERP providers through to the likes of HAYNE, who have kindly hosted the webinar this afternoon. So in summary, I believe what you're going to see is a simply intelligent solution that's very modern in architecture. If you've heard about in-memory computing, then LucaNet is in that mould. But really, for me, it's financial intelligence and a very, very different take on the traditional world of financial performance management. So I think without further ado, let's actually dive into the solution itself. As I say, we can actually set up a workflow process within the solution, and I guess I'm blessed in a demonstration by actually having that all outlined for me. But we can see here, for instance, if we look here, explanation of the workflow functionalities, you can see that it's a step. But also on the right-hand side here, we have the ability to document exactly what needs to be done. So when we implement a solution, it's not us as LucaNet or our partners. Our clients will actively document the processes themselves. By double-clicking, and you'll hear me say double-click a fair amount, that opens up an editing window. And then within this window here, we can hold a number of pieces of information. So whether that be text, graphics, imagery, we can bring all of that into the LucaNet solution. And then if we need to, we can print that out as formal PDF documents. So at the end of the day, we get our clients to physically document the solution. So if they were to move on, the actual information is stored within LucaNet. Apologies if you can hear a siren in the background. That's not the police coming to get me. We do have a hospital just round the corner. So if you hear an alarm every now and then, that's what it will be. So again, just to reiterate here, this ability to self-document and hold imagery, when you double-click an image, it brings that up into the product. For us, is extremely powerful, and for me, is solving that traditional challenge of, if using spreadsheets, who built it and what do I do with it? Within LucaNet, it's all within the solution. And at the top here, you've got the full online help available, and you can also edit and take screenshots from within the product itself. So no using snipping tool or third-party products. We actually do provide the ability to screenshot and capture throughout the product. As I've said before, all of these tasks can be associated with an individual, and then as individuals log into the solution, it can highlight what needs to be done. So in my particular case, I have several overdue items. I'm just going to log back out and show you the login process, because I appreciate you didn't see that as well. When you log into LucaNet, I've got many databases here, but the logging in process can be integrated with your network security, or it can be completely standalone. So in my particular case, I'm logging in using what I would call a standalone security. So the process of logging in can be single sign-on, or it can be, as you've just seen, logging in to the product. And you can see down the bottom here, logged in as an administrator, and depending on your security rights, you will see either everything, because all good demonstrations start with administrator, or you will see only certain aspects of the product, and also the structures and hierarchies within them. Okay, so let's get stuck straight into some of the capabilities. Again, I'm going to take for granted now that I've explained the fact that we self-document, but if I click here, it'll take me actually to the individual report that I want to review. So I've now gone into the profit and loss statement for the holding company. So in the top right-hand corner, you can see I have a hierarchical structure. That goes down into cost centers, and this can be completely customized and designed according to your needs. And again, depending on your security, would dictate what elements of the hierarchy you can see. We also have all the different versions, so actuals, budgets, forecasts, and we'll come back onto that a little bit later. But we also have the ability to manage and control not only the imported data, but also the adjustments that take place in that data. And again, we'll be looking at that a little bit later on. But instantly you can see that it has a very, very cell-based spreadsheet-like interface. So if I want to drill into the years, the quarters, you can immediately see that my information is appearing, and I can also drill into not only the group chart, but I can drill right the way down into the underlying accounts that have come from several or potentially several disparate ledgers. We also have the ability to tailor the view that we see. So if I want to look at maybe just quarters, or I just want to look at years, it's very, very simple to drag and drop and see multiple time periods. Again, just to keep it nice and simple for the purposes of the demo here, you can see I'm double-clicking and drilling in as well. As an example of some of the other functionality that we offer, and I think for me this is very important, because with LucaNet, for the first time, you will see a completely seamless experience with building a hierarchy as well as reporting. So what I mean by that is if we look here, for instance, at our general and admin expenses. Now this is a chart of accounts that would be in an accounts dimension in many other products, and it would be a central administrator or the equivalent that would dictate what that looks like. That would have to be updated, reloaded, and then the reports rewritten. Within LucaNet, however, you can do that dynamically because we're an in-memory model. We can do the following. If you see here, we have two lines called travel that are buried within general and admin expenses. We may well want to actually create a new sub-level called travel expenses. So I'm going to right-click, new, and I'm going to create a new item, and I'm going to call that travel expenses. Notice also that we're multilingual. So down the bottom here, the solution can be presented in a multitude of languages. We can also decide what sort of color coding scheme we need and what formatting. I'm not going to bother the demonstration with that this afternoon, but I'm basically creating travel expenses, and you can see it has appeared here. Now I want to take the two lines of travel, I want to right click, cut, go into travel expenses and paste those two items in. LucaNet is an in-memory model and instantly it's available. So you can see I have my travel expenses, it's valid across all of the different months. If I go into the quarters or the years, it's instantly aggregated. So real-time computing here for LucaNet means ease of access to structure as well as ease of creation, dynamically and very, very quickly. We do some graphical capability within the product. So if I were to perhaps look at the marketing, you can do some neat things with this. You can have the graph wherever you would like it. We're not a BI tool. Our specialism is in the Office of Finance. It does give us the ability to present data. And later on, you can see how we would export data or dynamically connect to LucaNet with third-party applications. We can see here for marketing in the holding area, we can see that October, there's been a peak. So if we go into the marketing here and actually have a look at the underlying detail. So if I double click, what I do is instantly get to the underlying information that has been loaded into LucaNet. So this is where we say we are completely transparent. Everybody has full access to the underlying data according to your security. So for here, I can see that it's come from a loading, but again, I could click on the number, and if I want to, I could drill down to the underlying transactions that actually make up that original entry. It's not mandatory to load transactions for LucaNet, but it does give you that within 4 mouse clicks, you can get to the underlying journal entries that have made up a number. And if you wanted to, you could also scan your documents and bring that into the LucaNet solution as well. So completely transparent from total environment right the way down to the underlying detail. So that's just a little bit about the reporting. There are other things that we can do, certainly within the report. Let me just get rid of the graph. We can customize and tailor different views. So for instance, if we wanted to do actual budget, you can see this is actual budget for 2013. If I decide to look at that on a quarterly basis, I can. If I want to look at that on a monthly basis, I can, and so on. So really with LucaNet, you've got this ability to present data in a very, very easy way, and also from a pure novice's perspective, you're up to speed very, very quickly, even with the reporting. Now we've been referring to the profit and loss, and down the left-hand side here, you can see what we call workspaces. So for instance, I might want to switch into my balance sheet and open up my balance sheet detail. I might decide to look at cash flows. So this is really our reporting environment. But for those of you that are on the call that are used to products that potentially talk about multi-dimensional cubes, then within LucaNet, these workspaces are really those multi-dimensional environments. If we go back to the profit and loss just for a second, this is a dimensional report that is by account, by cost center, by version, by level, by currency, by time. And we can clearly change very quickly the ability to review that data. So for instance, instead of looking at the year, I might decide to put maybe the companies across the top. So instantly now, I'm looking at holding and all the cost centres. But if I were to go to the group level, you can see now that I've got my group data across the top. So very, very easy and very, very quick to do the reporting. I just want to also just show you how real-time LucaNet actually is. If we were just briefly to look at the dimensional aspects of LucaNet, and again, if any of you have seen competitive demonstrations before, this is an area that often would be shied away from, which is building things on the fly. For instance, here, I might decide that I want to create a new organisational group called Gavin. It's going to be in euros, and what I want to do here is just add holdings and China together. So I can come in here, I can create a new reference, I can click, and I can say, okay, I want to bring in holding, and I want to bring in China. Click OK, and I have a new subgroup. Go straight back to the profit and loss, and if I change that to Gavin, you can now see that I have holding and China instantly available in the product, being consolidated in the different currencies. So again, if I were to look at that purely in euros, the consolidation is immediate. So LucaNet is changing the way that we think about consolidation and making it pure real time. Okay, so let's move on a little bit further and talk about how you get information into LucaNet itself. I've got an example here where for the holding organisation, we haven't got any information in the solution for October. So again, we have, like all things with LucaNet, a simply intelligent way of bringing information into LucaNet as well as mapping that data. So if we go down to literally the postings area, we can come down to the importing, and we're going to import data into holding. Now, this is where we can connect to a variety of systems. So with LucaNet, we have well over 150 connectors to a variety of general ledger platforms. So that if required, we can actually connect directly to those environments. Let's create a new posting, so a new data import, and let's call this October 14 for holding. So I'll just bring that in. And you can see here we decide what the data source is going to be. So let's bring in the trial balance for holding. Let's bring in a mapping table, and let's do an import. So you can see here we want to import holding. We want to import 2014 into period 10. And we'll start. So LucaNet has now gone away. It has loaded the data, and it has come back, and immediately it said to me, I've got some information in the underlying source system that I don't understand what to do with. So this is dynamic mapping. So as opposed to logging back out, updating a lookup table or a mapping table and going back in, we can do that as a seamless exercise. So within here, we've got what needs to be mapped versus the target system of LucaNet. So we have a couple of items here that are costs that we potentially want to map. In the middle here, we do have the option to potentially map according to names or numbers. I'm just going to briefly show you very quickly that if we take subcontracted expenses, we'll say that, we'll put that in purchase services for a moment. In fact, let's put it in labour expenses. Now, the important thing to note is if you've got 20 or 30 underlying general ledgers, you can bring in 20 or 30 general ledger codes. So 3030, I'm actually going to put into labour costs, and I'm going to put it in here. So at the end of the day, everybody has full visibility of their underlying accounting systems rolling up into the group chart. Just to finish off this bit of mapping, we've got fuel costs. So let's just find where that is. That's going to be motor vehicle costs. Let's map that across. And then we've got some accounting areas or cost centres to map. So let's click on that. You can see we've got holding. We've got a production cost centre, that we need to bring across here. So again, let's bring it through. Now what LucaNet is doing here is actually blurring the lines between hierarchy and data, because right in here I'm building structure and mapping data. So within here I can rename, I can go into the properties, I could change that to production 4, I could spell it, that is, so production 4. I can come in here, I can reorder that. So again, I'm actually in the hierarchy, but I've also put a tick in the mapping box as well. Click OK. For me personally as an accountant, that's the first time I've ever seen something that can blend structure, data and mapping in one place. I've now saved that data and it is now been committed to LucaNet. Again, our transparent nature means we can always get back to the underlying detail that has been posted, but more importantly, if I go back to the report that we were in a second ago, you can now see that I've got October data sitting within the solution. LucaNet is a double entry system. We are named after Luca Pacioli, who is a Venetian monk that invented double entry bookkeeping several years ago. So in order to load data, we're looking for complete and referential trial balances. So again, you can see that my balance sheet now balances. We can also look at balance sheet movements by a quick click of the button, so very, very simple. We can also analyse our fixed assets into the additions, disposals and movements, and also have a fully integrated cash flow completely out of the box. So loading of information into LucaNet is very quick and very, very simple. Now, appreciating that not everything comes from a data source, we can import from Excel spreadsheets. We have an Excel add-in that, like every other vendor, talks dynamically to LucaNet. But we also have the ability to collect data from individual areas that may not have a general ledger to connect to. So we can create customized report books and packs that allow end users to log in through the browser and come in and actually capture their information through here. So this is all customizable. You can see here templates that allow us to go through, capture the notes to the accounts, have some built-in rules, etc. And when those reports and forms are submitted, we have full workflow and control around that capability. So again, you can have completely customized reporting packages for end users to load data. Just also moving on to, I guess, the adjustment of data. What I was referring to earlier was the audit record of trial balances. So your system auditors and your accounting auditors will be looking for an audit trail of where data has come from. So for instance here, on the imported data, double click, and I can immediately see where that data has come from. I can click on the posting and immediately I've got that full transparency. So very simple to get to the underlying data. So the ability to adjust data. So for instance here, we have a journal posting. So, you know, I might want to put a journal entry into any one of my items. And again, we can come in here, we can do new, and we can create a journal entry. So we'll call this test journal. We can tailor how we present this. So again, we don't have a standard journal template. We might decide that we only want to do January, to do an OK. So you can now see that I've got my journal here and it's for January. And I can now come in and put in my accounts accordingly. So the ability to enter, change the layout, change the format, show hierarchy, do whatever we want to do completely dynamically within LucaNet. Very, very easy. So we don't have standard journals. We allow data entry into the solution, but into a different adjustment level. So in other words, we're able to delineate imported data and adjusted data. If we now look at the subject of currency conversion, I have an example here where we are now looking at the subsidiary for China. So at the end of the day, we have the local currency in yuans, and we have the reporting currency, which is in euros. And this is clearly being converted at an exchange rate. So if we look at the January 14 exchange rates within LucaNet, so if we come down to the currency conversion for the yuans to euros, for actuals, and we come down to the January 14, and we look at the number here, double click. If we were to change that number, let's say to 10, something very obvious, and we commit that, you can see that's changed. And LucaNet is a real-time consolidation system. Yes, I say that again, a real-time consolidation system. No more batch processing of information. It is calculated immediately, so the results are instantly available to you. So again, that speed of getting to the data, being able to then come into the solution, and if for whatever reason here I wanted to identify the exchange gains and losses for maybe concessions and trademarks, I can come down into the properties here, and with literally a click of the mouse, instantly LucaNet has given me the currency difference. So again, this is setting us aside in terms of that real-time capability. And if you're looking to do integrated cash flows, the ability to really break out currency difference is very, very easy. And of course, you could create a section here that's got the currency differences against all lines of your balance sheet and have complete visibility of everything. So I've gone on a little bit there about consolidation and processes of consolidation. I'm just going to touch on maybe one aspect of more than aggregation. We've looked at currency. Intercompany eliminations as an example here. Again, with LucaNet, it's very transparent, very easy to do, no complex setting up. We can see in this example, in the holding company, we have 1.4 million euros with the subsidiary France, and we can see that down here, we also have that with holding. So both holding and France have been very good. They've spoken to one another, and they've matched their intercompany. But as we all know, as financial professionals, intercompany matching is usually day one of the close, and it's a headache. So within LucaNet, we can come into the solution and we can create an intercompany elimination on the fly. So let's just say we want to do the debt consolidation for the entire year. So I'm just going to run that. You can see the ability to change the scope of something. Do an OK. And instantly, LucaNet has gone through, it's matched up everything, and has said, there is some differences here between holding and China. So again, we've got some intercompany differences. And here, we can actually decide where we're going to post those differences. So you can see here, for instance, we are just defaulting it to good old miscellaneous other liabilities. If we do an OK, we also have audit trail. So what this is saying is that I can't post anything in August because it's already been closed. So again, if I just maybe change the context of that to September and update the wizard, again you can see that I've got the same data, but just for September. And again, it's telling me that September is closed. So if we come down to our audit trails and we open up September, just to show you how easy it is to do, we come down into our audit trails, into our postings, and if we come across here, you'll see that September needs to be opened. So I've now opened September, and now I should be able to post the intercompany eliminations. So again, from many of our sort of processes, you can see that that's now all been posted. And if I double click on that, you can see we get down to the detail, and you can see where the intercompany eliminations have all been posted. So down here, you can see that's all gone through the system. And again, if I click on something, it takes me into the underlying detail. So very, very quick and very, very powerful. Okay, so that's a little bit about financial consolidation. With LucaNet, once the data is in the solution, we can then start immediately considering the world of budgeting, planning and forecasting without the usual headache of having to now go and build a budgeting, forecasting and planning solution. So again, when we look at competitive technologies, A, you might be in another product, and B, you may well be into building a series of data models, data cubes that need to be linked together. With LucaNet, and for me again personally, and I hope I'm sharing the enthusiasm with everyone on the call, the ability to model your P&L, balance sheet and cash flow really should follow on from your actuals. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look maybe at some of the functionality for a particular area. So if we look at the France P&L, so bearing in mind we've loaded our reference data for 2013, and I might want to plan my revenues for 2014. So let's right click, let's new, let's post. Now you notice I've used a form. So I'm going to call this France Plan. Unlike every other competitor that will be looking at pre-building a planning application, within LucaNet you have complete flexibility to do what you want, when you want, on the fly. That also means that your process of planning can change monthly if it needs to. We have a variety of form types here, but I'm just going to use the most simple, which is a default, and I'm going to do an OK. And what I'm presented with is a simple yet very, very powerful form. What I'm going to do is actually customize my planning experience by selecting the years that I want, and I'm also going to come in here and select the 2 years. So I've got 2013 and 2014. I'm going to select revenues because that's what I want to plan, and instantly I'm now presented with what happened last year. So I now want to do some revenue modelling. So let's say 60 million. So I've now planned 60 million. I could create a comment into there, into 2014, and again put a very valid comment in there. I can then drill down into the detail. So what you see here is that LucaNet does breakback, and because there wasn't any data in there, it's just done it flat. So what I might decide to do is actually seed this maybe with 445, just as an example. And if I go back to change this to an annual plan, and then change that to my 60 million, LucaNet will break that down 445. So you can do all of that type of modelling, but also on the fly, I might decide to then do a different type of modelling for a different line item. So I might decide to go into the default here and set a new block that might be, I don't know, office costs or something similar. And now I can start to model my office costs. Again, if I come into here and I say my admin costs, and I were to plan how that were to look, instant referenceability. If I now get 2013, I've now got last year's data and so on. So it's very, very simple to then go from here and then use a forecast wizard maybe to do something with this. So if I look at the forecast, I can look at last year and I can say I want to apply that profile to next year. So apply that prognosis into the next year, but increase everything by 5%. So you can see the profile is going to be exactly the same, but lifted by 5%. I might decide to do a monthly increment of 10, use linear regressions or polynomial regressions, but it's based on information from last year. So if I apply that, I've instantly now got next year's admin costs done very, very easily. So it's these type of things that LucaNet really brings to the table, including a graphical ability to change things. So again, I can do this from within the graph. And again, I've not had to build this. I don't have to build any complex planning models. I can do that directly within the solution and without further effort on my behalf. So very, very powerful and very, very easy to do. So again, from my point of view, when it comes to planning, you start with your P&L. So again, let's just do that again, just to reinforce the message of planning the revenue. So I'm just going to go back to what I said a minute ago. So if we just go into revenues, and I'm going to do 60 million, and I'm going to say that's fine. Click OK. Now LucaNet is a double entry system. So again, if you were looking or considering other planning solutions, often this part is forgotten. You have a plan and you want to then be able to link that to your balance sheet and cash flow. And in many other solutions, you have to then go and build all of that. Within LucaNet, it's encouraging you to do that out of the box. And this is called our accounting rules. So if I open up our accounting rules for the budget for France, and I look at revenues, you can see here that there's no accounting entry. So I'm going to double click here, and I'm going to say, right, I want to effectively have a time delayed payment so that for half of my revenue, it will come a month later, and then 30% will come 2 months later, and then the final 20% I'll receive 3 months later. And now I can say the double entry of this, in terms of my bank account, I can now select my bank. I'll put that into my check account, and also the other side of revenue should be debtors, or certainly was when I did all of my accounting exams. So if we come down to our accounts receivable trade, and now we set up that accounting rule, when I do my plan, and I submit my plan now, the double entry bookkeeping has taken place. So if you plan every line of your P&L, you will intrinsically also plan your balance sheet and your cash flow all at the same time without having to build a separate, dedicated planning solution. So I can't emphasize that enough. The ability to do planning, budgeting and forecasting without having to build a bespoke solution, as soon as the information is in LucaNet, you are then able to work with that data and plan on it immediately. So that is why when we talk about implementing a performance management solution with LucaNet, we're able to do it in very, very quick order. Just conscious of time, just going to move on very, very quickly. If we go back to where we were a second ago, and we maybe look at the P&L. So if we were to look at this maybe for 2014, and we drill into that, you can see here that for my actuals, I've got information up to October, but nothing for December. But I do have a budget that's got information in there. So within LucaNet, you can create very quickly a 10+2 forecast. So if I come into here, do new planning, if we call this, I don't know, forecast 10+2 for 2014, I can go in and I can build that straight from within the solution. So I can take my budget as a template and click OK. What LucaNet's now going to do is going to start really creating that version behind the scenes. So it's going to go through, it will do all of the calculation. So what it's done is it's built that data level. Now what I want to do is I want to say, well, that's actually going to start, my first actual period will start in October 2014. So let's just find October 2014 in the solution. So let's just pick that, click OK. LucaNet is now going through just adjusting that so that effectively I've got 10 months of actuals and 2 months of budget. And then if I go back to my report and I look at my forecast, which is my 10+2, you can see there that I have effectively, I think I did 9+3, but I've got 9 months of actual, 3 months of budget. So again, that's something that normally you'd have to code within your solution. So just to finish off on the less exciting bit for me, because all the numbers are now done, the reporting within LucaNet. We can obviously create links to individual reports, so just linking them, we can drop them down into spreadsheets. So again, I can export data down as a spreadsheet. So if I just browse to my desktop so I can at least find this, do that as a test file, do an OK. That's just a static rendition of the report within Excel. But we also have the ability to push data into Excel as well. So in this example, we are effectively running the report, but from within LucaNet. So I want to run the management report. I want to run that for the group, or I could run it for Gavin. Remember, I built that earlier. For August, let's generate the report and generate it. So LucaNet is now our trusted source of data, pushing information out and loading the information into the Excel domain. Just wait for my Excel sheet to open. And what you can see now is that our report and our report pack is now sitting within a pure Excel environment. And as you might have guessed, if I look at the configuration maybe of that template, I've got options around how that is presented, but also when we configure that in terms of the template, you'll see that it has formula instead of numbers. And LucaNet pushes data into Excel. So we have both a push and a pull method of getting data into a spreadsheet. So if we push data into a spreadsheet, we get round the usual issue of hundreds of thousands of cells of data not coming into a spreadsheet, because normally the information is pulled into the spreadsheet domain. We can also integrate with Word. We can bring things in here. So for instance, we might decide to have a report that's in Word and include some of our text and our commentary around that. You can see here where we've got a report and we've got data within the solution. And I guess also the ability to connect to other BI tools. So we aren't a business intelligence provider. We are a financial performance management provider that focuses on the numbers. So we really can open up our system really to any BI tool. So if we were to look at, say, the BI integration, we can build cubes because LucaNet is a multi-dimensional cube. And just for the sake of brevity, I'm just going to open up Excel and just hopefully, fingers crossed, because it's a live demo, I'm going to try and connect to LucaNet through my Excel environment. So let's just connect, just make sure I'm on the same port, which I am. So I'm now connecting to LucaNet live. So what this means is if you want near real time or live reporting off of LucaNet, you can connect into the LucaNet multi-dimensional domain, and you can then actually start to do reporting. So again, in comparison to maybe some of our competitive solutions, where you've got a plethora of connections and performance issues, within LucaNet, you set up your BI integration, so you say what you want to view, and then in this case, I'm using Excel as the first step of my business intelligence journey. So you can see here, let's bring in, say, let's have accounts as rows, let's have time as columns, and values. So if anybody thinks business intelligence is difficult against a multi-dimensional solution that's in memory, think again, because you've just seen how easy that is to do. Yes, I've just used Excel, but at the end of the day, this is what business intelligence can take you forward to. And all of that is configured within the LucaNet solution here. So I've got 5 minutes left. I've rattled through that, and apologies, in the time that we've got, I love the LucaNet solution. I'm passionate about it. It's why I left behind 25 plus years of legacy solutions, and I see them as just that. I think LucaNet is a breath of fresh air in terms of giving us financial professionals a tool that is genuinely game-changing. So I've gone through a lot of capability, appreciating a demo can last 2-3 hours, or in my case, I could demo this for a week and still be going strong. I'm just going to hand back over to Rick for potentially any final questions that we might have. So I'm just looking through the chat box. I can't see any questions. I do appreciate also that on these webinars you're all on mute as well, which never helps. But I guess from our point of view, I'm proud to have HAYNE as one of our premium partners. They bring a level of gravitas and expertise that is second to none. So I think we are a very proud LucaNet family at the moment here in the UK, and we'd love to see more customers taking the LucaNet challenge, which for us is you provide us some data, we can mock something up with your information, and you could be seeing your numbers in LucaNet. A typical implementation for us is 30 elapsed days, which is typically 15 consultancy days. We've just literally implemented at a client in Cambridge in no less than 7 days, and that was from nothing to completion. So I think with that, I'm going to be quiet now. I'll hand back to Rick for any closing comments.
Thank you, Gavin. I don't know about anybody else, I'm exhausted. Gavin goes like 20 to the dozen to try and squeeze everything into was a relatively short time scale. So you'll probably be looking forward to watching it again on the recording. So we'll certainly let you know where you can do that. And maybe when you've watched that a couple of times and caught up, you might have a few more questions. I can't see any questions at the moment. So please feel free to email, well, me. You've got my contact details from when we've sent out the invitations, etc. If there are no questions, then I'll just thank you for your time today, and we'll be in touch with the recording and probably give you a bell and see what you thought. Thank you very much, Gavin, for your time and efforts.
No, thank you, everybody, and thanks again for HAYNE for hosting the webinar this afternoon.
And thank you, everybody else, for attending. Thanks very much. Take care.